Assemblywoman Lucy Flores, I appreciate you joining the show and talking through all of that with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to bring in now Claire DeMatteis, who served as senior counsel for then Senator Joe Biden from 1994 to 2004. Claire, thank you very much for being on the show. And I know you had a chance to listen, I think, to what Assemblywoman Flores had to say there. Do you believe that Joe Biden's response has been adequate? Do you believe that he or someone from his team should reach out to her?
I think his response has been adequate. He has said he did not think he did anything inappropriate. He certainly did not intend to make her feel uncomfortable. And he said, but he's listening, and he's listening very respectfully. I don't think it's necessary to reach out to her. We're having the conversation
you don't.
on
why
public
not?
television.
She said she would love to hear from him or from somebody.
Yeah, she's made this a very public, coming out very publicly about this. She used the pronoun a lot, we. It's one person, Hallie, it's one person of an allegation that's 5 years old, and that cannot negate or change or diminish in any way Joe Biden's very strong record empowering women. I worked for him for 10 years.
Yeah.
There's no time in that 10 years, thousands of hours with him, on the train, in meetings, in town hall meetings, at colleges, at high schools. At no time did he cross a line. Joe Biden is a very warm, affectionate, friendly politician. I'm sorry she did not know that about him in the 20, 30 minutes she spent with him. He's not somebody when you meet, he doesn't like cross his arms and take a step back. He embraces people. That's who he is.
But, okay, so a couple of points on that, actually, Claire, because that brings up a couple of things. So, number one, would you still feel the same way? And one thing Ms. Flores talked about was the idea of context here. So put this into a different context. If it was a company CEO, for example, and a female employee, would that not be grounds for a complaint? Would you not feel differently in that context and in those circumstances?
And yeah, I'm an adjunct professor at University of Delaware. I teach this in the class on women and global perspective. It's about having that conversation. There was a way for her to talk about this closer to the event rather than 5 years later in the middle of a political campaign coming forward. So it's politicized now. There was a way to handle this one-on-one at the time to clear the air, and that didn't happen, unfortunately.
We have to acknowledge, of course, Claire, that 5 years ago, that was pre the Me Too movement, and much has changed, as I think a lot of folks would acknowledge, culturally, not just politically, but culturally, since October 2017, when the Me Too movement really erupted. Do you give credence to that, the idea that things have changed and that perhaps you talk about Joe Biden as one of these sort of politicians that likes to hug and kiss. Should he be reconsidering that, given the era that we are in today?
And I think he is. The irony of talking about the Me Too movement is Joe Biden was working to empower women like me and other people on his staff. He was working to empower women through the Violence Against Women Act before it was a popular hashtag. So nothing that Ms. Flores has said diminishes what his record shows for 45 years of respecting women, hiring women, promoting women, empowering women. That's the irony of this. Like, the signature accomplishment of Joe Biden's career is his fighting for women's rights.
Claire, I appreciate you being on. Very quickly before I let you go, yes or no, do you still would encourage Joe Biden to run? You still want him to run?
Absolutely.
Okay. Claire DeMatteis, I really appreciate you being on. Thank you very much for your perspective.